Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Gonitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're continuing with Canto 10, chapter 43. And there are 3 texts for today, text 2, text 3, and text 4. And text 2 is on the board, so we can chant text 2 responsively. Rangadvaram samasadya tasmin nagar avashtitam apatsyat kavalyapidaha pam. Sorry. Krishno mambasta prachodhitam Rangadvaram samasadya tasmin nagar avashtitam apashyat kavalyapidam Krishno basta prachodhitam Rangadvaram samasadya tasmin nagaravashtitam apastyat kavalya pidam Krishnom basta prachodhitam. Please chant. Rangadvaram samosadyam. Tasmin nagaravashtitam. Apasyat kuvalya pidam. Krishnom ambasta prachodhitam. Rangadvaram samasadyam. Tasmin nagaravashtitam. Apasyat kuvalya pidam. Krishnam basta prachodhitam. Rangadvaram samasadyam. Tasmin nagaravashtitam. Apasyat kuvalya pidam. Krishnam basta prachodhitam. And the word for word, Ranga, of the arena. Dvaram, the gate. Samasadya, reaching. Tasmin, in that place. Nagam, an elephant. Avashtitam, standing. Apashyat, he saw. Kuvalyapidam, named Kuvalyapida. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Ambasta, by his keeper. Prachodhitam, urged on. Now read texts 3 and 4. Buddha parikaram shoram samuha kutalakan uvacha hastipam vacha meganada gabhiraya. Well, I'll read all in Sanskrit and then I'll come back for the translation, since I forgot to read the translation for text 2. Text 4. Ambastam basta margam now deni apakramame chiram no chetsa kunjaram tvadya nayam yama sadhanam. And the translation for text 2. When Lord Krishna reached the entrance to the arena, he saw the elephant Kuvalyapida blocking his way at the urging of his keeper. In the purport, the elephant keeper revealed his malicious intent by blocking Lord Krishna's entrance into the arena. And text 3 translation. Securely binding up his clothes and tying back his curly locks, Lord Krishna addressed the elephant keeper with words as grave as the trembling of a cloud. Purport. Lord Krishna was obviously preparing for a fight. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Lord put aside his jacket, tightened his belt, and tied back his hair. Text 4, translation. Lord Krishna said, "O driver, driver, move aside at once and let us pass. If you don't, this very day, I will send both you and your elephant to the abode of Yamaraj." Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpataribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Ramapada Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm going to begin this little section because it's very much in a narrative form by reading from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada writing. So the description of Krishna and Balaram arriving at the gate of the wrestling arena is narrated by Srila Prabhupada. So I'm quoting Srila Prabhupada as he's narrating. When Krishna and Balaram reached the gate of the wrestling arena, they saw a big elephant by the name Kuvalyapida being tended by a caretaker riding on its head. The caretaker was deliberately blocking their entrance by keeping the elephant in front of the gateway. Krishna could understand the purpose of the caretaker, and he prepared himself by tightening his clothes before combating the elephant. There's commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in that he says that, this is quoting him, Krishna saw the elephant Kuvalyapida being instigated by his trainer. Now, generally a trainer or a mahut is a term for those performing the work of training an elephant, such that they take care of all the elephant's needs, and there's a strong bond that develops between the mahut, the elephant caretaker, and the elephant being trained. Now, this particular elephant, Kuvalyapida, is being spurred on by his trainer to perform a particular action. And that action is of blocking the entrance to the arena. And instigate is a word that was used by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur when he's referring to this action that the trainer is encouraging the elephant to do. And it's used usually for an action that has some evil intent. Indeed, this particular action was in accord with an order that was earlier on given by King Kamsa. Because King Kamsa had instructed the same elephant trainer in this way. He had said, you elephant keeper, my good man, should position the elephant Kuvalyapida at the entrance to the wrestling arena and have him kill my two enemies. This was earlier on in the 36th chapter. Thus, the evil intent is to kill Krishna and Balaram at the entrance to the arena. It's on. Oh, like this is better? My apologies. Thank you for letting me know. So the evil intent is to kill Krishna and Balaram at the entrance to the arena. So this was part of a plot of King Kamsa, which he had revealed to his ministers, Chanura and Mustika. He had said to those ministers, so this was part of King Kamsa's plot, "It has been predicted that these two boys will be the cause of my death. When they are brought here, kill them on the pretext of engaging them in a wrestling match." Now, there's a statement made by Lord Krishna that indicates how one should engage one's mind in remembering him. So this has relevance because we're hearing something of how King Kamsa is arranging a plot, and we've heard in previous classes something of how his particular recall of Lord Krishna put him in a state of complete terror, or at least he was, the response of terror came from Krishna's breaking the bow. So that's his most recent exposure to these two boys entering Mathura. So this is what Krishna says, how one can engage one's mind and how one should engage one's mind in remembering him. This is from Bhagavad Gita 8:9. He says, "One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who's the maintainer of everything, who's beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who's always a person. He's luminous like the sun, and he's transcendental beyond the material nature." And I'm going to read the Sanskrit for that. "Kavin Puranam Anushashitaram Anor Antyam Sam Anusmaretya Sarvasya Datatam Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasaha Parastat." Now, naturally, King Kamsa had thought of the person Krishna and the person Balaram, but he had failed to understand what Krishna is actually like, particularly that Lord Krishna is beyond material nature. So although he's appearing like a human being, he's not a common youth. King Kamsa had a plot which he'd explained to Akura of the Yadu dynasty too. So not only had he said something to his two ministers, but he expanded the plot when he explained it to Akura. So we actually get to hear something of how King Kamsa was thinking. He says, "The demigods who are under the protection of Vishnu have sent these two boys as my death. Bring them here and also have Nanda and the other cowherd men come with gifts of tribute. After you bring Krishna and Balaram, I will have them killed by my elephant, who is as powerful as death itself. And if by chance they escape from him, I will have them killed by my wrestlers, who are as strong as lightning. When these two have been killed, I will kill Vasudev and all their lamenting relatives, the Vrishnis, the Bhojas, and the Dasartas. I will also kill my old father, Ugrasena, who is greedy for my kingdom, and I will kill his brother Devaka and all my other enemies as well. Then, my friend, this earth will be free of thorns. My elder relative, Jarasandha, and my dear friend, Davida, are solid well-wishers of mine, as are Sambara, Naraka, and Bana. I will use them all to kill off those kings who are allied with the demigods, and then I will rule the earth. So this is Kamsa's plot. He's actually planning a mass extermination of 3 dynasties, and he's starting with what he imagines he'll be able to do is to kill Krishna and Balaram, and from there it's going to progress a complete extermination. So this is him recounting in the 36th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam to Akrura. Now, the characteristic of Krishna as Kava, or one who knows past, present, and future, indicates this characteristic that he knows everything. So it's not that Kamsa had revealed this plot Mary to Akrura. Lord Krishna actually understood all this in advance. He, in fact, gives his insight. So Krishna gives his insight into persons like King Kamsa. This is what he says: "Fools deride me when I descend in human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be." So this is something he describes or states in Bhagavad Gita 9:11. Avajananti mam mudha manusim tanum ashritam param bhavan ajananto mama bhuta maheshvaram. So in this section, Lord Krishna is described in the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as, so he's in the position now, he understands completely what King Kamsa's plot is. He's been confronted by the first part of the plot of the elephant keeper urging the elephant to block the entrance, in some huge, furious, ferocious elephant, or that's the mood of this particular elephant, because he's being goaded by his trainer. So this is the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur of how Krishna responds. He takes off his shirt, tightens his belt, and placing garlands and other dangling objects over his shoulder and tucking his curly locks under his turban with his fingers. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds that, this is quoting Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, fearing that they would become loose at the time of combat, Krishna tied back his hair with his upper cloth. So here he is. Now, Lord Krishna obviously is preparing for a fight. And that's the commentary of text 3. Now, he understands perfectly the intention of the elephant keeper. So part of the verse of where he's talking about how one should understand him or meditate upon him, he mentions that he's the smallest of the smallest, since he can enter into the heart of the smallest and control them. Now, in this case, of course, he's present within the heart of the elephant, who's rather huge. And so too, that of the keeper. So there's a parallel description of Lord Krishna preparing to do battle with Kali's serpent. It immediately came to my mind when I read this description in the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where Krishna's preparing for a fight. Because the parallel description, when Krishna saw Kali, who had polluted the Yamuna River with his terrible poison, was for him to climb to the top of Kadamba tree. And this is the description. He tightened his belt, slapped his arms, and then jumped into the poisonous water. So there's some similarity from the point of view of, really getting his garments in order prior to a fight. So that's Krishna. Also, in that situation, he also tied back his locks as he prepared to do battle with Kali. So, nothing loose and dangling. And in fact, even earlier on in the chapter, there was a commentary which described when Krishna was having his ornaments made. The ornaments were made of cloth, so there wouldn't be any, abrasion to the skin, obviously, or to the body, because the ornaments if they were metal, that would be what would be happening. So he's fully prepared, comfortable. Now, another characteristic of Krishna that becomes apparent is of his being the controller. And this is part of what he described as how one should remember him. So Lord Krishna says from the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, so this is quoting, I will send you to the abode of Yama. And the words that were used were Yama, Sadamam. And the phrase Yama Sadamam, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, also indicates liberation because it is attained sadyate prapyate by control of the mind. So there's two meanings to his utterance to the elephant keeper. Now, from Bhagavad Gita 8:9, Srila Prabhupada states that Krishna is the supreme controller of the universe, and he's the maintainer and instructor of humanity. So in this particular instance, when he's addressing the elephant keeper, he's giving him an instruction. He says, you miscreant caretaker. Begins with an insult. Give way and let me pass through the gate. If you block my way, I shall send you and your elephant to the house of death personified. So the man receives an instruction. And that was, this expanded reading was from Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writing. Now that omniscience and Krishna's capacity to dispense judgment, it's acknowledged by Kaliya too, and I'm drawing a comparison because of this idea of engaging in battle. Kaliya acknowledges Krishna's capacity for arranging or dispensing judgment because he asked Krishna to arrange, after the battle, he actually asked Krishna to arrange whatever he considers proper, be it mercy or judgment. So it indicates that Kaliya came to that understanding that Krishna is the dispenser of of judgment. Now, in Kaliya's case, he becomes freed from the contamination of illusion. So what this means is there's a problem of being under the control of illusory energy. And this is common to every living entity. So it's not just Kaliya or it's not just this elephant keeper. One can generalize every living entity is under the control of the illusory energy. So how this is the actual position of every living entity, the actual position is that by constitution as a spirit soul, one is actually in a position of subordination to the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna. That's the actual position. And Srila Prabhupada explains, this is his explanation, when one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's the explanation for the problem that arises when one is reading about King Kamsa or this elephant keeper who's following King Kamsa's instruction. They can't understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're under the illusory energy because they're separated from this knowledge that by constitution they should be in a position of subordination to the Supreme Lord. Thus, it's quite applicable to the elephant keeper not being able to understand Krishna. And Krishna gives the symptom by which one can recognize that someone is being controlled by the illusory energy. So there's a way you can recognize, and this is how Krishna puts it. There is either desire or hatred operating. So it's because of this antagonistic principle, the one or the other, that the deluded person will think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energy. And clearly the elephant keeper has to, he's described as having malicious intent, so that clearly there's hatred within the heart. And there's also obviously malicious intent on the part of Kamsa and his mistaken idea of ruling the earth after imagining killing Krishna and Balaram, as though they are part of the material energy. So one can see how this complex problem arises, getting caught up in this dual principle of either desiring or hating, just because one is separated from that understanding of being in a factual position of subordination to the Supreme Lord. Now, this is in contrast to a devotee who isn't deluded by desire and hate. He can understand that Krishna appears by his own internal potencies. And Krishna puts it this way: O scion of Bharata, when he's addressing Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arisen from desire and hatred. So it's a natural condition, but a devotee can go past that because of accepting that position of subordination to the Supreme Lord. Now, returning to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the fact that he notes that Yama Sadaman also means being liberated by control of the mind, there's the consideration that there are different material perfections that are attractive to an ordinary person. So a person who's separated from this knowledge of being subordinate to Lord Krishna may actually come to some point of material perfection. And these perfections are called siddhis. So I'm going to look at this a little bit because of the fact that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur spoke about this yama sadamam also meaning becoming liberated by controlling the mind, because all these siddhis are reflections of control of the mind, but it's on a very material level. So here they are. And this is explained in Madhya Leela in the 19th chapter. There is the siddhi of merging into the supreme as well as Brahmanical qualifications. So those are also material qualifications, a Brahmana's qualifications, as is yogic trance. So all these are actually material perfections. So Srila Prabhupada states that the brilliance that exists in these material perfections or these siddhis exists only as long as one does not take to devotional service. So, of course, this is fitting the picture of one who's been controlled by the material energy, one who's operating in the vacillating between desire and hatred. And this is different from a person who's gone beyond this control of the material energy and is actually understanding his position of subordination to the Supreme Lord, because through devotional service, one can control the supreme controller of all universal affairs. That's the significant difference. So, as long as there is not the slight, and this is how it's put in Madhya Leela, as long as there is not the slightest fragrance of pure love of Krishna, which is the perfected medicinal herb for controlling Lord Krishna within the heart, the opulence of material perfections and the trance of the yogi and the monistic bliss of Brahman all seem wonderful to men. So The control of the mind may be in the form of a yogic perfection, by which one transforms one's body. So one can transform one's body. So here are some of those yogic perfections, which all seem so extraordinary. But again, it's not comparable to being in the correct position of understanding one's position of subordination to the Supreme Lord, and hence even being able to control Lord Krishna. So here are some of those material perfections. There's the yogic perfection of anima, which means that one can actually reduce the size of one's body and become smaller than the smallest. There's lagima, becoming so light that one is like a feather that can float in the air. Or one can even walk on water. So this is a yogic perfection where one is actually transforming one's body. And then there's madhima, becoming greater than the greatest. And continuing on, there's other perfections that are a bit more subtle, so not merely transforming the body, but more on the mental plane. So prapti perfection means that one can acquire whatever one desires. And one can also enter the senses of other living beings through the predominating deities of the particular sense. So there's the description that one can use one's finger and like actually touch the moon. So that's part of this kind of material, subtle perfection where there's a mental material perfection. And through another such yogic perfection, there's tishita. But this perfection allows one to control the subpotencies of Maya. So one can experience an object that one finds desirable. So it's all on the mental plane. Whatever object one thinks of, one can actually have all the feelings and textual experience of that particular object. And further control of the mind is vasti siddhi. It means that actually one doesn't get impeded by the modes of material nature. One can recognize, oh, this is ignorance or passion or goodness operating. So still one can actually proceed, cut through them. But all of this is quite inferior to the greater path, which is to remember the omniscient Supreme Lord as the person who gives beneficial teachings and who has the power to enter into the jiva and is thus smaller than the jiva. So one can recall that he's actually spread everywhere and that he holds the whole universe within himself. So you can see the complete difference. It's more from a position of veneration and great regard for the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one can remember him in this way. The other way, which is more on the, being caught between that desire and hatred, one can't go beyond just what one's own body or mind desires. And one certainly can't acknowledge the Supreme Lord. So one can recall that he's spread everywhere and that he holds the whole universe within himself. And all of this is possible because his very form is inconceivable. And this is something that this poor elephant keeper, it was beyond his comprehension, is beyond the comprehension of Kamsa. So that one Brahman, or that Lord of medium size in the form of a human that is appearing here, that we're reading in these particular texts, should be remembered in this particular way that Krishna himself says he needs to be remembered. And then one can actually recognize one's the necessity of actually following his instruction. So we shall come to hear what transpires because this elephant keeper sadly was not in that position. So I'm ending here. If there's any particular thought on this little section, please feel free to comment or even raise a question. Go, Gora. You have to talk a little louder and right into the microphone so everybody can hear. I didn't hear anything except remember Krishna, so maybe your mother can help. His father has understood perfectly the question. Oh, it's gone. Think a little bit, Gora, it'll come. Thank you. Yes, it's a very charming, um, but clearly also communicates that intent on the part of Krishna, which is what you're commenting. Indeed, there's a deliberate nature to each of the movements, like, moving anything that's might be dangling out of the way and going forward. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yes, of course, Kuvalya Pida is being goaded by his trainer. So I remember being in Maipur and seen the elephant that was there many years ago. And there was I don't know if it's there now, I haven't been for a long time to Maipur, but there was a sunken area where the elephant was kept. I guess it could be filled up with water. And the elephant could be bathed there. But I remember seeing the elephant there, and I was watching the elephant keeper goading the elephant, and I guess the goad is a little bit painful for the elephant. So you can see the elephant gets very agitated. So that's what this particular elephant keeper was doing, and hence it was infuriating the elephant. So the evil intent was coming from the keeper, and the elephant was responding with fury. So I guess the combination is clearly indicating opposition to Lord Krishna and Balaram. And considering the fact that they were issued an invitation to come to the wrestling arena, this is what they're confronting as supposed guests of Kamsa. So, and Krishna had understood all of this because even earlier on there's mention that they went on a sightseeing tour of the city. So it's not that, they arrived right away and made their way to the arena, not at all. Krishna he had a mood of disregard for Kamsa. So the understanding was there on the part of Krishna. And so his coming to that gate, he already understood what he was going to be dealing with. So that animosity was very apparent, yes. Gora, did you remember what question was coming? No, it didn't come. All right. So if there isn't anything else, thank you very much for your kind attention. It was a simple section, and I hope something was gleaned from it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.